Okay, guys, so 101. This is we're pretty much done. We've been over the entire text of the Phaedrus. And we've been over the David Foster Wallace and Michael Pollan articles about eating meat. All that really remains, this is going to be short. I don't think this is going to be like a whole thing. So we should probably review what you need to do to pass the class one more time. Paper one, you already did when you were in class with me, so you have a draft of that. You could turn in a second draft of that, raise the grade. Paper two was another different essay about Plato's Phaedrus, and if you need a copy of that, it's on the blog. You gotta kind of click and scroll down and scroll down and scroll down until you find it. I'll probably put it back up at top after this video is up. I'll probably one of the last things I'll put up is like a review of what you have to turn in to pass. So I'll say all this again at the top so you have to search for it. So you got paper one, which you did a first draft of, and some of you guys turned in a second one. You got paper two, which some of you guys have turned in. That's again a paper about Phaedrus, and there's like 3 questions. Pick one. Paper three is also probably about Phaedrus, but it involves a little bit of research. You got to quote 2 experts or historical facts that are unusual or interesting. And you're going to put that in your paper. And the last paper is something you'll do on Blackboard. Instructions are coming on that. I checked on this today for you guys, so there will be instructions up on the blog. Basically, it's going to unlock on like May 14th, and you'll have 3 days to sort of write an essay about the Michael Pollan and David Foster Wallace. And that essay, it's going to give you 3 questions. You're only going to pick one and answer it. And you're going to answer the question, which means you're going to say what you think, reasons for what you think. But you're also going to quote Michael Pollan somewhere in there, discuss that quote, which means quote, put it in say who said it, why they're important, put it in your own words. How much do how much do you agree or disagree with what they're saying? So you'll answer the question, and in your answer, in your essay, you will be, because it's going to be a question about food or animals or something, and in there somewhere, you are going to quote and discuss both. You got to do both. You're going to quote and discuss both David Foster Wallace and Michael Pollan, which means you say who they are, you say what they wrote, you quote them, you put the quote in your own words, you put the quote in your own words, and you tell me, you say, connect them to your argument. You say how much do you think they're right or wrong, or discuss them, debate them, and that's going to help you answer the question you were asked, because you're going to be asked a question about, I don't know, animal rights or something, and those guys have thoughts on animal rights. So quoting them is going to help you answer the question. You could agree with them. You could say, I think, you can say, David Foster Wallace says this, and I agree. But you can also say, David Foster Wallace says this, and I disagree, as long as you connect it back in to your essay. One thing you do, by the way, one thing to keep in mind when you're writing paper 4, small piece of advice, you probably already know this. But one small piece of advice I have for you on paper 4 is just, you're going to be asked a question. Just make sure every paragraph you write connects to that question somehow. And and to pass, you've got to quote David Foster Wallace and Michael Pollan at least once, and you got to discuss those quotes and say whether you agree or disagree and all that stuff, and then make sure each paragraph answers the question you were asked. And that's it. It's pretty easy. I think you can handle it. I think it should be. I don't actually know their requirements of how long it's supposed to be, but I'll have some information on the blog. So 2 things that are going to be up on the blog are going to be a summary of everything you have to do to pass the class, meaning I'll list off all 4 papers like a checklist, and also I'll have information, and I'll remind you again about the credit no credit idea, which means you can pass the class and get credit for it, but you don't get a grade. It just says pass or not. And then you take paper 4, and paper 4 will be available on Blackboard, between like May 14th and May 17th, and I'll give you instructions about you go to Blackboard, you log into Blackboard. Maybe check now, make sure you can log into Blackboard, make sure you have your password and all that stuff, because you're going to need that. But I'll have links and instructions for that. And once you do those papers, then you're all done. And I'll give you a grade. And if you like your grade, you can keep it. And if you don't like your grade, you can make the class pass fail. Yeah, I think that's about it. So those are the things. So the last thing we kind of need to do before we kind of end, and there's a couple things we have to do before we end the semester, but the last piece of work we need to do, the last piece of paper related work. I mean, the last work we have to do to prepare you for your papers is just look at a really quick, simple thing, not complicated. It's called the talking points. The talking points are something that was invented by the composition committee, the teachers who designed paper 4. Like I didn't, because paper 4 is going to ask you questions. I did not invent those questions. There was a group of professors. Remember, all the 101 classes at BMCC are all writing about. If you took only my class, is writing about Plato's Phaedrus, but everybody in the building who's taking 101 is writing about David Foster Wallace and Michael Pollan. The questions everybody is answering are not set up by me. They're set up by a group of English professors, and those folks, they made a list of things that you should know in order to do well on the exam. Now, I think looking at this list is going to be pretty easy because I think you're going to know this stuff already, but I thought I would show this to you and we could kind of look at it to make sure it makes sense. So I have it here on this screen. I know this is not the best way to do it, but I will be printing this on the blog today. So probably just below this video will be the list of the talking points. And basically, the people that made the questions took a look at all the questions and they said, we better make sure before our students answer these questions, they understand these basic ideas so that they're prepared. This is not going to be difficult. This isn't like another thing you got to learn. It's just a review. It's just a review. It's some key things just to make sure you're kind of paying attention to. So with that in mind, let's take a look at it. Pretty easy. So the first thing they have on here, so the first thing they have on here is the word dilemma. A dilemma is when a difficult choice has to be made between at least two possibilities, usually equally undesirable possibilities. Hey, you know that one. That's an easy one. We already talked about what a dilemma is. But a dilemma is when you have to make a choice and they're both bad. The name of Michael Pollan's book is called The Omnivore's Dilemma. If you can eat everything, should you? Eating meat seems like a bad idea because it causes harm to animals. And why are you causing harm when you don't have to? But being vegetarian doesn't seem like a good idea either because it doesn't seem as much fun. That's a dilemma. All right, let's take a look at something else. We've also got omnivore, a person that can eat both plants and animals for food. And there's other words you should know, like vegetarian, vegan, herbivore, carnivore. We've already been over this. So you knew, omnivore, we talked about what an omnivore is. It's a person or animal that eats both plants and animals for food. And they listed some other words here, vegetarian, vegan, herbivore, and carnivore. You know these things. Vegetarian only eats vegetables. Why did that happen? That was a weird lighting effect. But you know this, right? A vegetarian only eats vegetables, and a vegan only eats vegetables and also doesn't eat, a vegetarian doesn't eat meat. A vegan doesn't eat meat or eggs or milk because eggs or milk come from animals, so it doesn't eat, I see the problem. Okay, so a vegetarian doesn't eat meat. Vegan doesn't eat meat or milk or eggs because those are other animal products. Herbivore is an animal that only eats plants, and carnivore is an animal that only eats meat. And omnivore is a person or animal that eats both plants and animals for food. Hey, that was easy. We can totally do that. Okay. Let's see what else we got. Consumption. Oh, here, let's another one. Ethical decisions and responsibility. The process of evaluating and choosing something with the desire to do what is right regardless of the cost. That's what ethics are. Ethical decisions and responsibility mean you try to do what's right, even though it may be hard, even though it might cost you, right? Even though maybe it costs you your enjoyment. Maybe you'd rather eat meat, and that's fun, but the right thing to do, the ethical thing to do, is to not eat meat. So that's an ethical decision. You already know that. This is going really easy. We really went over this stuff already pretty good. Okay, so I'm going to stop this video and we'll pick it up in the next video.